The village whispered her name with fear, yet she walked alone at dusk. Shadows stretched across the dusty path, hiding secrets no one dared reveal. A scream cut through the marketplace, leaving silence heavier than grief. Chinara was a quiet 16-year-old with dark, shining skin, large curious eyes, and tightly braided hair, always wearing faded school uniforms. Yet her determination lit her face, while neighbors admired her kindness but whispered about her family's hidden misfortune. Her mother, Ijeoma, was a gentle woman with weary shoulders, hands calloused from years of selling yams at the market, always smiling to mask worry, and often whispered to Chinara, "One day, my daughter, the world will notice your heart." Chinara's father had left when she was a toddler, leaving the house filled with memories, peeling paint, and quiet sorrow. Yet Chinara moved through it like sunlight through dust, finding hope even when neighbors cast pitying glances. The village of Abosi hummed with daily life. Children ran barefoot across the red earth. Elders sat under mango trees exchanging news, and the market buzzed with vendors shouting prices. Yet in every corner, whispers of jealousy and hidden schemes lurked silently. Her best friend, Amaka, a bold girl with laughter that could lift the heaviest mood, always dragged Chinara to play despite her shyness, saying, "Chinara, one day you will shine so bright, even the sun will envy you." At school, teachers often admired Chinara's sharp mind, but other girls envied her, whispering cruel rumors during lessons, stealing small privileges, and spreading lies, leaving her to endure the sting silently while keeping her dignity like a fragile treasure. The dusty roads of Abosi reflected the harsh sun, and the villagers struggled with poverty and hunger, yet small joys remained, like the scent of roasted corn, children's songs echoing through the afternoon, and Chinara's quiet hope weaving through the town's heartbeat. But behind the laughter and daily routine, a shadow of injustice lingered, as if fate had marked her for trials, and everyone who passed her whispered secrets she could not yet understand, hinting that her life was about to change forever. One morning, as Chinara walked to school, she saw her mother being shouted at by the wealthy trader, Mr. Obi, whose anger filled the marketplace, demanding money her family did not have, while neighbors watched silently with fear. Chinara's heart pounded as Mr. Obi slammed a hand on the table, shoving baskets of yams to the ground, and Ijeoma's tears fell quietly, her hands shaking as she tried to gather the scattered produce under blazing sun. "Please, sir, give me more time," her mother begged, voice trembling. Yet Mr. Obi laughed harshly, saying, "Time is for the rich, woman, not for those who live in dust," leaving Chinara frozen with helpless rage. Children playing nearby stopped to watch, whispers growing louder, while Chinara clenched her fists, feeling her chest tighten, realizing the injustice was deeper than hunger or money, and for the first time, she understood how powerless she seemed. That night, Chinara lay awake on the cracked mat, listening to the wind howl through broken windows, imagining what she could do to change their fate, while fear and determination tangled together like wild vines inside her chest. The following days brought rumors that Mr. Obi had threatened to take their house if the debt remained unpaid, and neighbors avoided their home, leaving Chinara and her mother feeling small, trapped, and surrounded by silent judgment in every corner. At school, whispers followed Chinara like shadows, and even Amaka hesitated, saying, "Chinara, don't let it get to you." But Chinara's tears betrayed her strength, for injustice had arrived at her doorstep, uninvited and cruel. Yet in her heart, a spark flickered, stubborn and fragile, promising that despite the world's cruelty, she might find a way to rise, a promise she could not yet explain, but it burned quietly beneath the fear. Chinara tried to sell small baskets of vegetables at the market, but wealthier vendors pushed her aside, shouting, "No space for your wares, girl," while neighbors pretended not to see her struggle under the scorching sun and judgmental eyes. At home, Igioma's cough worsened, yet she insisted on walking to the market daily, dragging a heavy basket with trembling hands, while Chinara watched helplessly, knowing every step carried both love and the silent fear of losing everything. One afternoon, Mr. Obi visited their small home unannounced, glaring at Chinara, saying, "You think cleverness can save you, little girl, but cleverness cannot pay debt," leaving her frozen, shame and anger wrestling inside her chest like wildfire. Her classmates whispered lies that Chinara's family had stolen from traders, spreading rumors that sank her into humiliation during lessons, and even Amaka struggled to defend her, fearing that friendship alone could not shield her from cruel tongues. The villagers began murmuring about Chinara's family, avoiding their home and whispering warnings to one another, while the dusty roads she walked daily felt longer, heavier, and full of invisible eyes judging her every step, mocking her persistence. One evening, the small lantern in their home flickered, and Chinara sat quietly beside her mother, trying to comfort her, yet feeling the weight of helplessness press on her chest like stones, as fear gnawed quietly at their hope. Even simple joys, like borrowing a notebook or playing under the mango tree, became difficult as cruel words and jealous eyes followed her relentlessly, and Chinara wondered if the world could ever be kind to someone born into dust. Yet, despite the suffering, Chinara refused to surrender, whispering under her breath, "I will not break, I will find a way," a fragile promise to herself, the first glimmer of courage flickering amid overwhelming despair and injustice. Chinara's schoolwork suffered as sleepless nights and market struggles drained her, yet she refused to complain, hiding tears behind her books, while classmates whispered, "She's trying too hard," but some fates are meant to stay in dust, fueling her frustration. One afternoon, Amaka tried to cheer her, saying, "Let's make a plan. Chinara, we can beat this." But Chinara's heart trembled, fearing any hope could be crushed by Mr. Obi's power or the village's silent cruelty at any moment. At the market, a rival vendor pushed her basket, scattering vegetables and shouting, "Why do you persist in shame?" While Mr. Obi's laughter echoed in her mind, making her small, yet inside, determination flickered stubbornly like a hidden flame in darkness. The neighbors whispered about debts unpaid and houses lost, and Chinara overheard cruel remarks from older women. "She will never rise. She is dust, and dust cannot bloom." And anger mixed with humiliation surged through her, almost breaking her fragile composure. Her mother tried to comfort her nightly, holding her hands and saying, "Chinara, even in darkness, stars can shine." But Chinara wondered if courage could withstand constant humiliation and if destiny could truly favor someone born to suffering and doubt. One evening, Chinara glimpsed a mysterious figure at the edge of the marketplace, watching her silently, and a chill ran down her spine, stirring curiosity, hope, and fear all at once, making her heart beat faster than any danger she had felt. Even small victories felt heavy. She managed to save a few coins selling firewood, yet Mr. Obi's threats grew louder, and the village gossip weighed on her soul, reminding her that every step forward carried both progress and peril in equal measure. Still, Chinara whispered to herself, "I will find a way, even if the world forgets me." Her courage solidifying beneath fear, and though the path ahead seemed impossible, the first threads of hope and strategy began weaving quietly inside her restless heart. If this story is touching you already, subscribe and stay with us. The most important part is about to unfold. A heavy rainstorm soaked the village, turning dusty paths into muddy traps, and Chinara trudged home, soaked and exhausted, while her mother's weak cough echoed through their small house, filling her with helplessness and quiet dread she could not shake. The following morning, Chinara discovered that her few coins had been stolen by a neighbor, leaving her unable to pay for school supplies or even a small meal. and despair wrapped around her chest like a heavy, suffocating blanket. Mr. Obi appeared at the marketplace unannounced, yelling threats and demanding payment, while onlookers stared silently, avoiding both judgment and involvement, and Chinara's heart sank, feeling every eye watching her humiliation as if the world itself conspired against her. Her best friend Amaka offered comfort, holding Chinara's hands, whispering, "We will find a way." Yet even Amaka's hope trembled against the relentless weight of poverty, fear, and shame pressing down on every corner of Chinara's small, fragile world. At school, cruel rumors reached their peak, and teachers ignored the harassment, leaving Chinara to endure mockery and isolation, and each insult struck like stones, embedding doubt, anger, and exhaustion deep within her, testing the limits of her endurance. That evening, Chinara sat alone beneath the mango tree, tears streaming freely, whispering prayers she had never spoken aloud, and the storm above mirrored her inner chaos, drenching her in cold, relentless fear that the world might never be kind. Even her mother's gentle voice could not calm the storm in Chinara's chest, as the threat of losing their home and dignity loomed larger than any hope she could muster, leaving her feeling trapped, powerless, and painfully small in a cruel world. Yet in the deepest ache of despair, a faint whisper of strength stirred inside her, fragile but unbroken, as if the universe itself hinted at a secret yet to be revealed, promising that even in darkness, courage could rise unexpectedly. One evening, while gathering firewood in the forest, Chinara stumbled upon a hidden grove where an old herbalist named Namdi lived, his eyes sparkling with knowledge, and he whispered, "I have been waiting for you, child. Your fate can still change." Namdi revealed a secret, that Chinara carried within her a rare gift of intuition and resilience, hidden beneath years of suffering, and with guidance, she could turn the village's cruelty into her strength, a power unseen but quietly growing inside. He handed her a small leather-bound notebook, saying, "Write your thoughts, your plans, and your courage, for the mind can shape reality when the heart refuses to break." And Chinara's eyes glimmered with a flicker of hope she had never felt before. Chinara returned home that night, heart racing, and whispered to her mother, "Mother, I have found a way to fight without anger, to rise without revenge." And Igioma's weary eyes shone with tears, hope threading through despair. The next day at school, Chinara used her newfound awareness to navigate the whispers, learning who could be trusted, who would help, and how to avoid Mr. Obi's gaze. And each small victory, though invisible, fueled courage that bloomed silently inside her. Even in the marketplace, she began organizing her efforts, selling produce cleverly, asking Namdi's guidance in secret, and slowly, neighbors started noticing her cleverness, her quiet determination, and whispers shifted from ridicule to cautious admiration for the girl once trapped in dust. Chinara discovered that strength did not always roar. Sometimes it whispered in patience, in careful steps, in steady plans, and every night she wrote in her notebook, plotting small victories that built momentum for the moment when she could face injustice fully. By the end of the week, a subtle change settled around her, as if the village itself sensed her quiet rise, and Chinara felt for the first time that destiny was not only something endured, but something she could shape with courage, cleverness, and heart. Chinara marched to the marketplace early, her heart pounding, carrying neatly arranged baskets of produce, and when Mr. Obi arrived, she stood tall, meeting his gaze with a quiet confidence that made the villagers pause and whisper in astonishment. "Why do you persist, little girl?" Mr. Obi sneered, his voice sharp and heavy with authority, yet Chinara answered calmly, "Because fear will never buy your respect, and courage will always find a way, even in dust like mine." The villagers gathered, some cheering silently, some hesitant, while Chinara carefully explained her plan to pay her debt fairly and openly. using clever strategies she had written in Namdi's notebook, leaving Mr. Obi momentarily speechless, his arrogance shaken by her resolve. Mr. Obi tried to intimidate her with threats, pointing fingers and shouting insults. Yet Chinara held her ground, showing her records of sales, coins saved, and help she had gathered from kind neighbors, demonstrating intelligence, honesty, and strategy in a way he had never expected. Anger twisted Mr. Obi's face as he realized the girl could not be easily broken, and in a final desperate attempt, he lunged toward her baskets. But the villagers stepped forward, creating a barrier, murmuring, "No more cruelty. Your time is over." Chinara's voice rang out, steady and clear. "I will not bow to fear, nor let injustice dictate my life." And a hush fell over the marketplace, as even Mr. Obi felt the power of courage and cleverness he had long ignored in the girl. With the crowd silently supporting her, Chinara negotiated terms that ensured fairness, secured her mother's safety, and exposed the greed and threats Mr. Obi had used, turning the confrontation from humiliation into triumph. And her confidence shone brighter than the midday sun. By sunset, Chinara stood victorious, the marketplace buzzing with admiration and awe, and even those who had mocked her whispered apologies, while she felt a quiet pride, knowing that courage, intelligence, and heart had conquered fear and injustice without a single act of cruelty. The villagers began to support Chinara and her mother openly, offering small loans, kind words, and protection from further threats. And slowly, the home that once felt trapped in dust became a place of warmth, laughter, and cautious celebration. Mr. Obi's greed was exposed to everyone in the village council, and he faced fines and public reprimand, while his threats faded into whispers, leaving him humbled and quiet, and Chinara watched without malice, knowing justice had been served fairly. Chinara and Igioma worked together, organizing their market stall with renewed energy, careful planning, and clever strategies, turning small baskets of produce into steady income, while the neighbors marveled at the girl who had risen above fear and hardship. Amaka ran alongside Chinara in the dusty streets, laughing freely, and they shared a victory that felt larger than any game or school achievement, for it was courage, cleverness, and persistence that had truly won the day. Even the school became a place of respect for Chinara, teachers acknowledging her determination, classmates whispering admiration instead of ridicule, and the girl once mocked as fragile and powerless now walked through corridors with quiet pride and unshakable self-respect. Igioma held Chinara close at night, saying, "You changed our fate, my daughter, from dust to glory." And Chinara realized the truth of her mother's words, that resilience, cleverness, and a kind heart could overcome even the darkest threats that life placed. The village learned to respect honesty, courage, and diligence, while greed and cruelty were no longer feared but confronted, and Chinara's story spread quietly among children and elders alike, becoming a lesson in bravery, intelligence, and hope for the future. By the end of the season, the house was brighter, the market stall thriving, and Chinara's heart was full of pride and gratitude, knowing that suffering had not defeated her, but had shaped her into a young woman of courage and wisdom. Years later, Chinara walked confidently through Abosi, her presence radiating respect and quiet strength, while villagers nodded in admiration, remembering the girl who had risen from hardship, teaching everyone that courage and intelligence could outshine fear and cruelty. Her mother, Igioma, smiled softly as she tended the flourishing market stall, proud that her daughter had turned suffering into triumph, and whispered, "Life rewards those who persevere, my child, even when the world seems determined to crush them completely." Chinara now mentored younger children, teaching them to read, write, and plan for their futures, showing by example that even those born into poverty could rise with heart, cleverness, and persistence, inspiring hope that spread quietly through the village. The village changed slowly, learning to value honesty, patience, and courage, while greed and cruelty were no longer tolerated. And Chinara's story became a living lesson, told by elders to remind everyone that even dust could give rise to glory. Chinara often visited the forest grove where Namdi had guided her, reflecting on the lessons he shared, and realized that strength could come from unexpected places, patience, and quiet determination, shaping her destiny far beyond what she had imagined as a child. Even Mr. Obi returned to the village humbled, no longer daring to threaten or belittle, and quietly observed Chinara's growth, realizing too late that power without compassion was empty, while the girl he once mocked now stood as a beacon of justice. At night, Chinara sat beneath the mango tree she once cried under, writing in her notebook, now filled with victories, plans, and dreams, knowing that life's harshest trials had forged her courage, and every challenge had prepared her for a brighter path. Her story became a quiet legend, reminding all who heard it that suffering is never permanent, that cleverness, courage, and kindness can reshape destiny, and that even from the dust of hardship, one can rise to shine with unstoppable glory.